What if a peaceful hike or dream vacation turned into a nightmare? In this 2-hour compilation, we uncover the most disturbing cases of women who went missing while hiking, camping, and traveling abroad. From remote wilderness trails to bustling foreign cities, these disappearances will leave you questioning the safety of your own adventures. Why did these women vanish, and what dark forces are at play? Join us as we delve into the haunting details of these unsolved mysteries. It was late December 2023 when Anna Gnezovic, a 40-year-old native of Colombia, boarded a flight from Fort Lauderdale to Madrid. Anna had left her husband, David Gnezovic, back in Florida amidst a bitter divorce. Anna hoped that Spain would be a new beginning, far away from the conflicts with her estranged husband. Anna's life in Madrid started off positively. She loved the vibrant culture and atmosphere of the city and quickly settled into her new apartment. Anna even began dating again, messaging friends and family about her excitement for her new life. But as the days went by, her communications became less frequent. On February 2, 2024, Anna was seen on security footage entering her apartment around 2:30 p.m. That night, she made a call to a friend, sounding normal and cheerful. However, it would be the last time anyone heard from her. The next morning, friends received strange messages from Anna's phone. The text claimed she had met a wonderful man and was going to spend time with him in a remote area with little cell service. The messages were uncharacteristic and caused immediate concern among her loved ones. The concern turned to alarm when Anna's brother, Felipe Henao, and her best friend, Sana Ramo, could not reach her. Felipe, who was very close to Anna, knew something was terribly wrong. He contacted Spanish authorities, sparking a multinational investigation involving the FBI, Spain's national police, and authorities from Colombia and Serbia. The investigation quickly focused on David Gnezovic, Anna's estranged husband. David, 36, had a complicated relationship with Anna. The couple managed EOX Technology Solutions Incorporated, a computer support business, and owned several properties in Florida. Their divorce was a mess, particularly over the division of their significant assets, which included properties worth millions of dollars. David's movements before and after Anna's disappearance were suspicious. He flew from Miami to Istanbul on January 27th, then traveled to Serbia, where he rented a Peugeot 308 on January 29th. He drove over 4,800 miles in the following days, a distance that would allow him to reach Madrid from Belgrade and back multiple times. Security footage from February 2nd showed a man resembling David buying spray paint and duct tape in a Madrid store. That same evening, a man wearing a motorcycle helmet was seen entering Anna's apartment building and spraying over the lens of a security camera. An hour later, the man was seen leaving with a suitcase. Authorities also found that David had asked a Colombian woman he met on a dating app to translate a message into perfect Colombian Spanish. The translated message was sent from Anna's phone to her friends the day after she disappeared, further arousing suspicion. David was arrested at Miami International Airport on May 4, 2024, by FBI agents when he returned from Serbia. Charged with kidnapping, he was denied bond due to the flight risk posed by his wealth and international connections. David, who protested his innocence, claimed he was in Serbia at the time of Anna's disappearance. Anna's family held a press conference on May 9th, expressing their heartbreak and hope for her safe return. Her brother Felipe, visibly distressed, urged anyone with information to come forward. Despite the months that had passed since Anna was last seen, the family remained hopeful that authorities would uncover the truth. The FBI's detailed complaint against David laid out the circumstantial evidence suggesting his involvement in Anna's disappearance. But without Anna's body or definitive proof of her fate, many questions remained unanswered. The evidence is compelling but not conclusive. Security footage, suspicious messages, and David's bizarre travel itinerary all point to his involvement, yet they do not provide a complete picture. Anna's family continues to search for answers, clinging to the hope that she may still be alive somewhere. The investigation is ongoing, with authorities from multiple countries working tirelessly to uncover the truth. But until Anna is found, either alive or deceased, her disappearance remains a haunting mystery. In April 2010, 23-year-old American Aubrey Caroline Sacco was on the final phase of her 5-month journey through South Asia. After visiting India and Sri Lanka, she decided to end her trip with a solo trek in Nepal's Himalayas. Aubrey, an adventurous and free-spirited young woman with a degree in art and psychology from the University of Colorado, had spent her time in Sri Lanka searching for octopus, volunteering at an orphanage and studying yoga in India. After a visit to Darjeeling, India, she headed to Nepal. Aubrey told her family she would be hiking in Langtang National Park, near the Tibetan border, and would check in with them in a few days. She was usually in close contact with her parents during her travels. On April 21, 2010, she began her solo hike. Her mother, Connie, expected to hear from her by April 30th. When the day passed without contact, her family grew worried. By early May, Connie contacted the U.S. Embassy in Kathmandu. Embassy officials suggested that civil unrest, specifically a Maoist uprising, might have delayed Aubrey in the mountains. On May 16th, Aubrey's father, Paul, and her elder brother, Crofton, flew to Kathmandu to search for her. Aubrey was last seen in Langtang village on April 22nd, about 35 miles north of Kathmandu. Initially, villagers said Aubrey had left in the afternoon, but later some claimed they hadn't seen her at all. Scott McLennan, an American who led medical trips in Langtang, joined the search. He suspected Aubrey might have fallen victim to young Army soldiers known for abusing women. He noted that local girls avoided staying near Army posts due to safety concerns. There were other, more unusual theories. A Dutch expat in Pokhara suggested Aubrey's disappearance was a sacrificial act by witches. Some locals speculated that her open and friendly demeanor might have led to her rape and murder. Other theories included abduction by sex traffickers or being held in a remote monastery. A teenage psychic claimed that 3 boys buried her beneath rocks near the forest. Another possibility was that Aubrey fell into the river. The trail she followed crossed steep banks and the water several times, making it dangerous. The Sacco family traveled to Nepal multiple times, trying to locate Aubrey with the help of local contacts, key politicians from Colorado, and even the FBI. Despite extensive searches around Langtang, no signs of Aubrey or her remains were found. Connie Sacco grew suspicious of the authorities' refusal to use search equipment, suggesting the government and police might not want to find out what happened to Aubrey. Nepalese police defended their actions, saying they had scoured the area and sought help from witch doctors. In April 2013, Paul and Connie returned to Nepal for a third time. They learned from witnesses that soldiers were reported near the Namaste tea house on the day Aubrey disappeared. 3 months later, they were informed that Aubrey's killers had been caught. On July 31, 2013, Dawa Lama, a man from Langtang, told them that police had arrested 3 men who confessed to murdering Aubrey. U.S. Embassy official Patrick McNeil learned that an undercover Nepali police officer had befriended a man who confessed to Aubrey's murder and implicated 2 accomplices. The Nepali newspaper Republica reported that one suspect had Aubrey's camera, and pieces of her clothing were found in another suspect's home. All 3 men were arrested. However, on August 1st, the family learned that the Nepali police inspector doubted the informant, who had changed his story. Based on no physical evidence, the 3 suspects were released after 28 days in custody. No further arrests were made and the case went cold. When a devastating earthquake hit Langtang in April 2015, killing around 9,000 people and injuring another 21,000, it buried Langtang village under an avalanche. The Sacco family felt their hopes of finding Aubrey buried in the devastation. Some who might have had information about Aubrey's fate were likely dead or missing after the quake. The Sacco family continued their efforts to find Aubrey through social media and appeals to authorities, including Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton. Paul Sacco found a photo on Aubrey's laptop of a man in a Darjeeling cafe who might have information about her whereabouts. Paul recorded an album titled Finding Aubrey as an outlet for his pain and a way to celebrate her life. Connie remains hopeful, despite the ongoing mystery of her daughter's disappearance and the devastation caused by the earthquake. Laura Vogel, an experienced camper and outdoor enthusiast, vanished without a trace on February 21, 2010, while camping alone in the Pauwela area outside of Maui. Laura, who had recently moved to Maui and was known for her love of surfing and hiking, had planned to spend the night under the stars near the Pauwela Point Lighthouse. On the day of her disappearance, Laura had visited a friend and mentioned her plan to camp out for the night. She was last seen wearing a blue shirt and gray sweatpants. When Laura failed to show up for work the next morning, her family grew concerned and contacted the Maui Police Department. Despite their efforts, the police advised them to wait 24 hours before filing a missing person report. Determined to find her, Laura's friends began searching the area themselves. Their search led them to Laura's van, abandoned in a grassy area off the main road. The van's passenger side door was open, and her keys were left in the ignition. However, her cell phone was missing from the car, although her laptop was found on the back seat. The van was parked near a transient camp where homeless people lived out of their cars. Maui police immediately launched an investigation into Laura's disappearance. They searched the area extensively but found no sign of her. They also interviewed everyone in the vicinity, but no one recalled seeing Laura that night. 2 days after the van was found, a search turned up Laura's cell phone nearby, broken into pieces. The phone records showed that after Laura sent a text message to her friend about her camping location, her phone made several calls to a number she had never contacted before. This number belonged to a homeless transient man who lived in the area. Despite his denial of involvement and inconclusive polygraph results, authorities considered him a person of interest in the case. Laura's family and friends were puzzled by her disappearance. They described her as a responsible and experienced hiker who would not take unnecessary risks, especially in flip-flops. They were also concerned about the transient camp near where her van was found, noting the area's reputation for drugs and crime. In the weeks following her disappearance, Laura's family continued to search for answers. They hired private search teams and worked with the police to gather any information that could lead to her whereabouts. Despite their efforts, Laura's case remained unsolved. Over time, 2 theories emerged regarding what happened to Laura. The first theory suggested that Laura had accidentally fallen off one of the cliffs in the area while hiking. The rugged terrain and her choice of footwear could have contributed to such an accident. However, her family believed this theory was unlikely, given Laura's experience and cautious nature. The second theory, which Laura's family found more plausible, was that she had met with foul play. They believed that the phone calls made from her phone after her disappearance, along with the suspicious circumstances surrounding her van, pointed to this conclusion. They also questioned the thoroughness of the police investigation, particularly regarding the transient man and the transient camp near where Laura's van was found. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Laura's family remained hopeful that one day they would find answers. They continued to raise awareness about her case, hoping that someone with information would come forward. For them, the search for Laura was far from over, and they were determined to find out the truth about what happened to her.
The Appalachian Trail, with its rugged terrain and breathtaking vistas, beckons adventurers from around the world. Among them was Geraldine Largay, a determined hiker known as Inchworm to her fellow trekkers. Her story is one of bravery, survival, and ultimately heartbreaking loss. Jerry embarked on her journey on April 23, 2013, accompanied by her friend, Jane Lee. Their plan was to hike the Appalachian Trail together, meeting Jerry's husband along the way for supplies and support. However, fate intervened when Jane was called away due to a family emergency on June 30th, leaving Jerry to continue her journey alone. From the outset, Jerry faced challenges. She struggled with a poor sense of direction, fear of the dark, and being alone. Despite these obstacles, she pressed on, determined to fulfill her dream of hiking the trail. On the night of July 21st, 22nd, Jerry found herself at the Poplar Ridge Lean-To in western Maine, where she crossed paths with fellow hiker Dottie Rust, who captured the last known picture of her. Little did Jerry know, this would be the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that would grip the hearts of many. The morning of July 22nd dawned like any other on the trail, but for Jerry, it marked the start of a nightmare. Venturing off the trail to relieve herself, she quickly became disoriented and lost. Panic set in as she realized she was alone, surrounded by the dense wilderness of Maine. With each passing moment, Jerry's fear intensified. She attempted to send text messages to her husband George, pleading for help, but poor cell service thwarted her efforts. Desperate and alone, she sought higher ground in hopes of finding a signal, but to no avail. As the hours turned into days, Jerry's situation grew increasingly dire. She wandered aimlessly through the dense forest, her panic mounting with each step. Her journal entries paint a haunting picture of her desperation as she grappled with the harsh reality of her predicament. On August 6, 2013, Jerry penned a heart-wrenching plea in her journal. "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now." These words, written in the depths of despair, would echo through the wilderness long after Jerry was gone. Despite her efforts to survive, Jerry's journey came to a tragic end. On October 14, 2015, her remains were discovered inside her sleeping bag in a campsite she had meticulously maintained until the very end. The news sent shockwaves through the hiking community, reigniting a sense of sadness and disbelief at the loss of one of their own. The discovery of Jerry's journal shed light on the final days of her life, revealing the extent of her struggle and the depth of her despair. Her entries detailed her attempts to navigate the unforgiving terrain, her frantic messages to her husband, and her heartbreaking plea for closure. But even in death, Jerry's spirit lives on. Her story serves as a cautionary tale for hikers everywhere, reminding them of the inherent dangers of venturing into the wilderness unprepared. As Jerry's family and friends gathered to mourn her loss, they were comforted by the knowledge that she had touched the lives of countless people along her journey. Geraldine's story is a reminder of how tough life can be and how strong people can be, even when things are hard. She may be gone, but her memory will live on as a reminder to be careful when exploring the wild and to appreciate the beauty of nature while also respecting its dangers.
It was April 11, 2016, in Oaxaca, Mexico. Jenny Chen, a 26-year-old Chinese citizen, had been backpacking through the country since March. She was adventurous, passionate about exploring new places, and loved meeting new people. On this day, she was headed out of the city, planning to meet her husband, Jonathan Reinhardt, in Cancun on April 15th. This would be a reunion after her solo travel adventure. But Jenny never made it to Cancun. Jenny was known for her frequent updates on social media. She posted photos regularly, sharing her journey with friends and family. She also made daily calls to her mother, but on April 11th, those updates and calls abruptly stopped. Concerned, Jonathan waited for her in Cancun. When she didn't show up, he knew something was terribly wrong. Jonathan, a Seattle resident, and Jenny had been together for 8 years. They met in China when Jonathan was there for work. Jenny had attended an event called English Corner by a lake, a popular gathering place for Chinese people wanting to practice their English. Jonathan recalled how Jenny had asked him if he liked Kentucky Fried Chicken. They exchanged phone numbers, went on a date, and soon fell in love. They married in 2012, and Jenny moved to the United States in 2013. She was on her path to becoming a U.S. citizen. Back in Cancun, Jonathan's concern grew with each passing hour. He contacted both the U.S. and Chinese embassies in Mexico, but their responses were not encouraging. The U.S. State Department offered little help since Jenny was not yet a U.S. citizen. The Chinese authorities were equally unhelpful. Frustrated, Jonathan took matters into his own hands. He hired a private investigator in Mexico, using funds raised through a GoFundMe campaign. The investigator managed to trace Jenny's movements on April 11th. She had traveled from Oaxaca City to Juchitán, a small town about 6 hours away. In Juchitán, she stayed with a local family and was last seen the following day, April 12th, trying to hitch a ride to Cancun along Highway 185. Eyewitnesses reported seeing Jenny getting into a Corona beer truck around 2 p.m. on April 12th. The driver had stopped on the side of the highway, waved Jenny over, and offered her a ride. This truck was supposed to take a different route to avoid a blockade by teachers, which was happening on the main road to Cancun. However, the truck headed in the opposite direction, a detail that puzzled everyone involved in the search. Jonathan's investigator reached out to Grupo Modelo, the company that owned the Corona truck, but getting any useful information from them proved to be a hard task. For weeks, they did not respond. When they finally did, the information was vague and unhelpful. They confirmed that there were 7 Corona trucks operating in the area on April 12th, but refused to release the names of the drivers or any other details that could help identify the one Jenny had boarded. Desperate for answers, Jonathan launched a social media campaign, urging friends and supporters to put pressure on Grupo Modelo through Facebook and Twitter. He also continued to raise funds through GoFundMe to cover the escalating costs of the private investigation. The situation was emotionally and financially draining. Jonathan had to balance his search efforts with his job and everyday responsibilities. His employer was supportive, but the stress was immense. Despite all these efforts, tangible leads were few and far between. The Mexican authorities were not much help either. While they issued an alert for information on Jenny, their efforts seemed dull. They suggested that Jenny could have taken a more dangerous northerly route through Veracruz State, known for its violence and disappearances, adding another layer of complexity and fear to the already harrowing situation. Jonathan's private investigator continued to dig for clues. The most promising lead remained the Corona truck sighting. Witnesses had clearly seen Jenny getting into the truck, but the trail went cold after that. Jonathan believed that the driver of that truck held the key to finding Jenny. However, Grupo Modelo's reluctance to cooperate fully was a significant roadblock. In a bid to get more information, Jonathan traveled to Mexico multiple times. He hoped to gain more support from the local Chinese Chamber of Commerce in Oaxaca and tried to retrace Jenny's steps himself. He even offered a reward for any information leading to her whereabouts, hoping that it might encourage someone to come forward. By May 24th, nearly 6 weeks after Jenny's disappearance, Grupo Modelo finally agreed to work with Jonathan and the investigators. They scheduled a call with the police, Jonathan, and the private investigator, but the information they provided was still limited, and the names of the drivers remained undisclosed. Jonathan remained determined. He believed that if he could get the names and photos of the Corona truck drivers, they could identify the one Jenny had been with. This person was the last known individual to see Jenny, and Jonathan was convinced they held the answers he desperately needed. Throughout this ordeal, Jonathan's love for Jenny and his hope for her safe return never wavered. He continued to advocate for her, pushing for more action from the authorities and Grupo Modelo. He also kept the public informed through the Facebook group Help Find Jenny, sharing updates and asking for continued support. As the search continues, many questions remain unanswered. What happened to Jenny after she got into the Corona truck? Why was Grupo Modelo so reluctant to provide information? Did the driver have any malicious intent, or was he just offering a ride to a stranded traveler? These questions weigh heavily on Jonathan and everyone involved in the search. March 1st marked the beginning of what was meant to be a journey of self-discovery for 26-year-old Jenny Chen, a resident of Seattle's Wallingford neighborhood. With a backpack slung over her shoulders and a sense of anticipation in her heart, she set off on a 2-month expedition through the vibrant landscapes of Mexico. For Jenny, this trip was not just an escape from the monotony of daily life. It was a chance to explore new horizons, embrace the unknown, and find herself amidst the chaos of unfamiliar surroundings. Born in China, Jenny had always had an adventurous spirit and a thirst for exploring and transcending borders and boundaries. This innate curiosity drew her to Seattle, where she had found solace in the city's eclectic blend of cultures and communities. But as she stood on the threshold of her latest adventure, Jenny knew she was going on a journey unlike any other, a trip that would test her courage, resilience, and faith in the unknown. For Jenny's husband, Jonathan Reinhardt, the decision to let his wife go on this solo expedition was not easy. As he watched her board the plane bound for Mexico, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at his insides. But he knew that Jenny needed this trip and the chance to spread her wings and fly, even if it meant facing dangers beyond home safety. The first few weeks of Jenny's trip passed without incident as she traveled through the bustling streets of Mexico City and wandered at the different tourist spots present there. Her social media posts were filled with snapshots of her adventures, each capturing a moment of exhilaration and wonder. But as she went further south into Oaxaca, the tone of her updates began to change. It was April 12th when Jenny's last message was sent, a brief note informing her friends that she was hitchhiking to Cancun. It was a decision that would prove to be her undoing as she unwittingly stepped into the path of danger. For Jonathan, the days that followed were a blur of frantic phone calls and desperate pleas for help. He contacted government agencies and local authorities, begging for help locating his wife. But his efforts were met with indifference and apathy, as bureaucratic red tape and jurisdictional disputes hampered his attempts to find answers. When Jonathan hired a private investigator, he uncovered the truth behind Jenny's disappearance. Through tireless investigation, they traced her route from Oaxaca to Juchitán, where eyewitnesses reported seeing her hitchhiking by the side of the road. And then a discovery was made. A witness came forward with information about a Corona beer truck that had stopped to offer Jenny a ride. But as Jonathan delved deeper into the mystery, he found himself confronted with more questions than answers. Who was the driver of the truck? And what had become of Jenny after she climbed inside? As the days passed, Jonathan refused to give up hope. He continued pressuring forward, rallying friends, family, and strangers' support. Through social media campaigns and fundraising efforts, he sought to amplify his voice, to demand justice for his wife and closure for those who loved her. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one question loomed in Jonathan's mind. What if Jenny was never found? What if she had disappeared without a trace, lost to the vast expanse of Mexico's rugged terrain? The thought was unbearable for Jonathan, a nightmare he could not escape. And so he clung to the hope that Jenny Chen was waiting to be found somewhere out there amidst the chaos and confusion. Until that day, he would never stop searching for or fighting for the truth. Ultimately, it was the only thing that mattered, the only thing that could bring him peace in the face of uncertainty and despair. It was July 13th, 2020, when Jean Teague was last seen leaving the Help Yourself hostel in Paredes, Portugal. Jean, a 38-year-old woman from County Cavan, Ireland, had her handbag but left her passport and most of her belongings behind. This unusual detail puzzled her family and investigators. Jean was an experienced traveler, often taking trips with little notice. Her family, used to her independent nature, didn't worry at first when they didn't hear from her. It wasn't until January 2021, 6 months later, that her family reported her missing. By then, Jean's social media accounts had shown activity, adding to the confusion. On the day Jean disappeared, she was seen leaving with a man who spoke with a Brazilian accent. This man has never been identified and remains a key figure in the mystery. Jean's sister, Leona Teague, believes this man might be the last person to have seen Jean alive. Leona's search for her sister has been exhausting. Living in New York and working as a nurse, Leona has balanced her job with searching for information. She has made several trips to Portugal, speaking with locals, but her efforts have largely been in vain. Portuguese authorities have been slow, only listing Jean as a missing person 3 years after she vanished. Leona remembers the last communication with her sister. On July 13th, Jean called her, but Leona missed the call. She texted back asking if everything was okay. Jean replied, "Yes, fine." Those would be the last words she would hear from her sister. Jean had a return ticket to Dublin booked for July 15th, but she never boarded the flight. Instead, she disappeared without a trace, leaving her family in anguish. The Teague family hired a private investigator, who confirmed that Jean left the hostel with the Brazilian man, but found little else. The hostel staff remembered Jean leaving but didn't know the man's identity or where they went. One of the most puzzling aspects of Jean's disappearance is the activity on her social media accounts. Her Instagram and Facebook were active until February 2021, 7 months after she was last seen. Posts were made, messages were sent, and the accounts appeared in use. But Leona and her family believe it wasn't Jean. They suspect someone else had access to her accounts, adding another layer of mystery. Jean's ex-boyfriend, Shoy Kitamba, who first reported her missing to Portuguese police, was found dead in his apartment in Alcabideche near Paredes. His death added a dark twist to the story, but it remains unclear if it is connected to Jean's disappearance. Leona has expressed deep frustration with the authorities. She believes there has been a lack of urgency from both the Portuguese police and Garda Síochána in Ireland. Access to Jean's social media and bank accounts could provide crucial information, but bureaucratic hurdles have delayed the process. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, is willing to help but needs a formal letter from the authorities, which has not yet been provided. Leona's efforts to raise awareness about her sister's case include participating in podcasts and media interviews. She hopes that by keeping Jean's story in the public eye, someone with information will come forward. The family's Facebook page dedicated to Jean's search has received messages from people worldwide, some sharing their own experiences of finding missing loved ones after years. Despite the challenges, Leona remains hopeful. She believes that someone out there knows what happened to Jean and that her sister's case can still be solved. She has called on the Irish government to push for answers and hold the Portuguese authorities accountable for their slow response. The lack of progress has taken a toll on the Teague family. They are stuck in limbo, unable to grieve properly without knowing what happened to Jean. The uncertainty has been devastating, and Leona fears that some family members cannot go on much longer without closure. Leona has also questioned the thoroughness of the investigation. She wants to know why certain leads, like the dating app Jean was using, haven't been fully explored. She believes this could be key to understanding what happened to her sister. People meet others through these apps all the time, and it seems like an obvious place to start.
In the vast American landscape, 22-year-old Gabby Petito embarked on a road trip with her 23-year-old boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. The journey promised adventure and discovery, but it took a chilling turn when Gabby ceased contact with her family in August 2021. Amid the unknown trails and open roads, Brian Laundrie became a person of interest as the haunting silence surrounded Gabby's disappearance. He vanished without a trace, setting off an intense search by the FBI and Florida police in a sprawling nature reserve. Gabby's last connection with her family echoed from the picturesque Grand Teton National Park on August 25th. A realm of natural beauty, it soon became the focal point of a mystery that would captivate the nation. As the search unfolded, a peculiar aspect of the Yellowstone National Park region reignited discussions about the infamous Zone of Death. A legal anomaly, this 80-kilometer strip of land straddling Idaho and Wyoming presented a challenge for law enforcement. A glitch in the Constitution rendered it difficult to police, leaving a theoretical haven for criminals. Michigan State University law professor Brian Kalt's 2005 academic paper, The Perfect Crime, highlighted the legal problem. In this zone, spanning both states, felonies might be committed with impunity due to jurisdictional complexities. The clash of Idaho and Wyoming, a constitutional enigma, posed a unique challenge to justice. The Sixth Amendment demanded criminal prosecutions within the state and district where the crime occurred. Yet the zone's peculiar legal status made summoning a jury nearly impossible, creating a potential loophole for those seeking to evade justice. Against this backdrop, the search for Gabby Petito intensified. National Park rangers combed through Grand Teton, deploying elite search and rescue units to unravel the mystery concealed within the vast wilderness. Gabby's final text message warned of Yosemite National Park's impending lack of phone service, adding an eerie note to her journey. Days later, her van surfaced in Florida and raising more questions than answers. As investigators delved into the Florida wilderness, Brian Laundrie's potential whereabouts became a focal point. The Mabry-Carlton Reserve, a sprawling 25,000-acre habitat, drew attention as reports surfaced that he could be concealed within its depths. FBI agents and local police meticulously combed through the reserve, prompted by Laundrie's family suggesting he might have entered the area. The search unfolded against the backdrop of a picturesque road trip documented on Instagram, capturing the idyllic moments of their journey across the U.S. However, the narrative turned sinister as more than 2 weeks passed since Brian Laundrie returned to his Florida home alone, leaving unanswered questions and an unsettling void. Gabby's family, growing increasingly concerned, filed a missing person report on September 11th. As the story unfolded, the Northport police faced a complex scenario. Brian Laundrie's parents, claiming not to have seen their son since Tuesday, contacted the FBI. Though Laundrie was a person of interest, he was not yet wanted for a crime, adding a layer of complexity to the evolving situation. Amidst the twists and turns of this unfolding tale, the road trip that once symbolized adventure and romance transformed into a mystery, shrouded in the vast landscapes of the American West. As the haunting mystery of Gabby Petito's disappearance lingers, the search for answers has intensified. Despite relentless efforts, no significant clues have emerged to unveil Gabby's whereabouts. Adding complexity to the puzzle, her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, has mysteriously escaped from his home, deepening the case's intrigue.
The Swiss Alps have beckoned adventurers and thrill-seekers for centuries, with their jutting peaks, pristine glaciers, and crisp mountain air. For Emily Deschanel, a 28-year-old passionate skier and outdoor enthusiast, the magnetic pull of these fabled slopes proved impossible to resist, until nature turned menacingly inhospitable. Emily should have been celebrating her 29th birthday this week. Instead, her family is mourning her disappearance on a treacherous ski trip that claimed the lives of 5 others, including her boyfriend David. It was supposed to be an adventure in the beautiful Swiss Alps, a group of 6 avid skiers trekking from Zermatt to the village of Arola, near the famous Matterhorn Peak. Emily loved sharing her alpine exploits on social media and was thrilled to join David and his relatives on the journey. But Mother Nature had other plans. As the group approached the 400-foot-high Tête Blanche mountain on Saturday afternoon, a brutal storm engulfed them. Blinding snow, howling winds over 70 miles per hour, and bone-chilling temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius. By 5 p.m. on March 10, 2024, one of the skiers managed to send a distress call before the brutal conditions overpowered them. When rescuers finally reached the area on Sunday night, they found 5 frozen bodies scattered across the mountain face: David, his 2 brothers, their cousin, and an uncle. Emily's backpack and skis lay ominously beside them, but despite extensive searches, there was no sign of the young law graduate from Fribourg. Anjan Truffer, the lead rescuer, shared the initial optimism that pervaded the search efforts. Reflecting on the belief in the possibility of miracles, he recounted previous instances where missing individuals had been found alive after several days. However, as the relentless search persisted for a week, hope began to wane. Despite their best efforts scouring the unforgiving terrain, authorities faced the grim reality that Emily might not be found alive. The decision to call off the search left devastated family members grappling with the painful acceptance that their loved one may never be recovered. So what happened to the promising 28-year-old who worked for the local water company? Did she simply wander away from the group, quickly succumbing to the deadly conditions? Or did a horrific fall, perhaps into one of the many crevasses that riddled the area, abruptly end her life that fateful day? Truffer acknowledged the treacherous nature of the terrain, conceding the possibility that Emily might have fallen into one of the numerous crevices scattered throughout the area. However, he stressed that such conjecture remained speculative at best. Despite authorities closing the case, Emily's loved ones grappled with a multitude of unanswered questions. How could someone as experienced in outdoor adventures as Emily, accompanied by 5 other proficient skiers, find themselves so tragically ill-equipped for the ferocious storm that descended upon them? Why had they chosen to traverse such demanding terrain dressed only in light clothing, a decision that seemed to defy common sense? Local mountain guides expressed disbelief and dismay at the situation, with one describing the ominous sight of the approaching storm as a wall of clouds. Their astonishment stemmed from the group's willingness to ski in hazardous conditions. Another guide went further, labeling their decision as negligent, highlighting the recklessness of their actions in the face of obvious danger. Officially, Emily Deschanel remains unfortunately untraceable, according to police. Her body still trapped somewhere in the cruel embrace of the Swiss peaks she adored. But her bright spirit echoes through the mountainsides in the memories of her shattered family and friends. Will her final resting place ever be discovered, allowing her anguished loved ones to lay her to rest properly? Or will the daredevil skier's last moments forever be shrouded in mystery, consumed by the mighty Alps exemplifying beauty and brutality? Only the mountains know for sure. Tiwanaut Mountain is one of the many spots in Grand Teton National Park where many hiking enthusiasts typically visit. Among those drawn to its challenge were Tyler Strandberg, Catherine Nix, and Rebecca Anderson, 3 friends with a shared love for hiking and outdoor sports activities. On August 22, 2015, they attempted the hike of this 12,300-foot natural structure, known to be the 6th tallest peak in the Teton Range. According to reports, the trio were not novices to climbing and had tackled several other mountain areas in the past. When they began their hike via Tiwanaku's east face without using ropes, they likely felt confident and untroubled about potential incidents. It was also known that the area they chose to climb was rated a 4.0 on the scale of difficulty. This rating indicates that, while good route-finding skills, mountaineering experience, and caution are necessary, the area is not considered highly technical by the park authorities. However, as the trio climbed the mountain, they lost sight of the official trail, a common issue for many who had previously taken this route. They soon found themselves far off course in a much more technical and dangerous area. As they attempted to navigate back to the correct trail, the unexpected happened. Tyler and Catherine slipped off a ledge and plummeted 200 feet. Rebecca, left behind in a confused and panicked state, was also unable to continue her journey either up or down because she was stuck on her own precarious ledge. After a while, she then took the initiative to contact the emergency dispatch center using her cell phone, which she still had with her. She informed them of the incident, explaining how she had tried calling out to her friends but received no response, which led her to fear that the worst had happened. Following the report, 3 rangers were dispatched via short haul to the location where Tyler and Catherine were believed to have fallen. Upon arrival, they discovered that the worst had indeed happened, as Rebecca had feared. Tyler and Catherine were found unresponsive, lying on the hard rock with their bodies severely mangled up. It was evident that they had lost their lives upon impact. After consulting with the park medical director, the rangers pronounced them dead at the scene. With nothing more that could be done for Tyler and Catherine, the rangers shifted their focus to rescuing Rebecca, who was still trapped on a ledge. 2 of the 3 rangers who responded to the call climbed steep and technical terrain for about an hour to reach her at 11,300 feet. Once they reached Rebecca, they prepared her for evacuation, and she was eventually short-hauled with one of the rangers to safety. Meanwhile, the remaining ranger rappelled down to meet his colleague, where the bodies of Tyler and Catherine lay. Their bodies were later evacuated to the coroner's office and subsequently picked up by their loved ones. It was later revealed that climbing the mountain had been one of Catherine's bucket list items for the summer, before she planned to move to New York in September to pursue a doctorate in child psychology at Pace University. Tragically, this adventure turned out to be the last item she would attempt on that list, resulting in the loss of both her life and that of her friend Tyler. In mourning their loss, Catherine's family paid tribute to her in various ways. Her brother honored her memory by running in her place in the New York City Marathon just months after the accident. Additionally, a friend completed the 100-mile Leadville Trail Run, a race in which Catherine and Tyler had previously participated. Day in June 2012 when Audrey and Nomi Belanger checked into the Phi Phi Palm Residence Hotel on the stunning Phi Phi Islands in Thailand. Audrey, 20, and Nomi, 26, were from Pohenegamuk, a small rural town in Quebec, Canada, known for its close-knit community and beautiful landscapes. They were well-loved in their hometown, always active in community events, and known for their friendly and vibrant personalities. The sisters had gone on this trip as a well-deserved break from their university studies at Université Laval. Both were excited to explore the exotic locales and vibrant nightlife of Thailand. They arrived at the Phi Phi Islands, a popular destination for young tourists seeking adventure and relaxation, on Tuesday, June 12, 2012. After checking into their hotel, Audrey and Nomi went out for the evening and returned to their room that same night. The next day, June 13th, they remained in their room the entire day. Hotel staff noticed that they didn't leave their room at all, but didn't think much of it initially. However, by Thursday, June 14th, a hotel maid grew concerned when the sisters didn't respond to her knocks. Believing they needed more rest, she left. But when she tried again that evening and received no response, she used a master key to enter the room. What she found was horrifying. The sisters were lying motionless in their beds, covered in vomit, with their fingernails and toenails a discolored blue. They had skin lesions and were bleeding from their gums. The hotel quickly alerted the local police, and an investigation was launched immediately. The initial investigation by Thai authorities revealed no signs of a struggle or robbery. There were various over-the-counter drugs found in the room, including ibuprofen, but nothing seemed out of place. The local police speculated that the sisters might have succumbed to food poisoning, possibly from blowfish or poisonous mushrooms, both known to be highly toxic if not prepared properly. However, this theory did not fully align with the symptoms observed. Dr. Komkrit Pukrityakame, the director of Krabi Hospital, conducted a preliminary examination and also suspected poisoning, but the exact source remained elusive. The sisters' bodies were then sent to Bangkok for a more thorough autopsy, which only added to the mystery. As the investigation progressed, a new and chilling theory emerged. In 2009, two women, an American and a Norwegian, had died under similar mysterious circumstances at the same resort. They had exhibited severe vomiting and dehydration, but the cause of death was never determined. This led some to believe that there might be a common factor at play. A joint investigation by CBC's The Fifth Estate and Radio-Canada's Enquête uncovered disturbing evidence pointing towards a highly toxic pesticide called aluminum phosphide, commonly used in some holiday hotels in Asia to control bedbugs. This pesticide, when exposed to air and moisture, releases a poisonous gas called phosphine, which is deadly to humans in high concentrations. Dr. Pasakorn Akarasewi, with Thailand's Ministry of Health, admitted that acute intoxication from a chemical in the pesticide group was a likely explanation for the sisters' deaths. This pesticide is strictly regulated in Canada, but its use in Thailand, particularly in hotels, is not as tightly controlled, despite official prohibitions. Despite these findings, the exact cause of death remained undetermined for a long time. The initial autopsies conducted in Bangkok 4 days after the deaths showed no traces of violence or trauma, but both sisters had been vomiting heavily. Thai pathologists concluded that insect repellent DEET might have been responsible, but Canadian coroner René Roussel later disagreed, stating that the concentration of DEET found was not toxic. Roussel's final report, released after extensive testing and investigation, pointed towards phosphine gas as the probable cause of death. This conclusion was supported by similar cases in Alberta, Canada, where 2 children had died from exposure to phosphine gas used to control bedbugs. Back in Pohinagamuk, the news of Audrey and Nomi's deaths shocked the people. The sisters were well known and loved by everyone in the town. The deaths of Audrey and Nomi Belanger remain a tragic mystery. While the theory of phosphine gas poisoning is compelling, it has never been conclusively proven. The circumstances of their deaths bear eerie similarities to other unexplained fatalities on Phi Phi Island and elsewhere in Thailand, suggesting a possible pattern of toxic exposure in tourist accommodations. A symphony of decay and life played out in the verdant embrace of the Hangzhou wetlands in China, where dragonflies danced in emerald sunbeams and ancient cypress knees knuckled from the murky water. The air, heavy with the cloying perfume of rotting lotus stems and the musky scent of wet earth, whispered secrets to the wind. Here, in this secluded haven for creatures both graceful and fearsome, the elusive alligator, a prehistoric sentinel, glided through the mirrored surface, its emerald scales catching the dappled light. But this fragile paradise was not untouched by the shadow of human greed. The wetlands, a flora and fauna treasure trove, were a magnet for those who dared to exploit its bounty. Mei Chen, a young woman whose shoulders were burdened by familial hardship, was drawn into this murky world. The incessant gnaw of financial desperation, the hollow ache in her stomach, and the desperate pleas in her mother's eyes had forged a chain of obligation that bound her to the dangerous path of poaching. Driven by desperate hope, Mei Chen ventured into the labyrinthine heart of the wetlands. Fat and insistent mosquitoes hummed a chorus of hunger around her ears, their bites leaving itchy welts on her exposed skin. The sun, a fiery orb sinking towards the horizon, cast long skeletal shadows from the gnarled branches of ancient willows. Each rustle in the reeds, each splash in the stagnant water sent a jolt of fear through Mei Chen's veins. This was a primal dance, a game of cat and mouse, where her livelihood hung in the balance against the razor-sharp teeth and unyielding power of the creature she sought. With trembling hands, Mei Chen set her snare, a cruel contraption of twisted vines and barbed hooks. It sent a silent scream against the symphony of the swamp. The act was a betrayal, violating the unspoken pact between humans and nature. Yet as the echoes of the trap's metallic snap faded into the twilight, Mei Chen could only offer a silent prayer to the gods of the wetlands, praying for forgiveness and a swift, merciful end to this desperate dance. She knew with chilling certainty that the line between hunter and hunted was as thin as the mist that now swirled around her, and the following sunrise could bring either redemption or a watery grave. Mei Chen's trap was meticulously crafted, a crude contraption hidden amidst the foliage intended to trap the elusive alligator. The young poacher knew the risks too well, but felt she had no choice. As she crouched in the shadows, the anticipation of potential profit mingled with the fear of the consequences that might follow. Unbeknownst to Mei Chen, her desperate endeavor would lead to an unexpected encounter with the old trapper, Jin Jin Shou. a seasoned man whose weary eyes reflected a lifetime of choices weighed against the conscience that now troubled him. He had once been a poacher himself, his hands stained with the guilt of exploiting the very creatures he now sought to protect. In the twilight hours, as Mei Chen's trap lay in wait, a ripple disturbed the stillness of the water. A formidable female alligator, known for her territorial ferocity, approached the hidden danger. The trap snapped shut with a jarring force, ensnaring the mighty creature. Chaos erupted as the alligator thrashed and roared, its struggles echoing through the wetland. Mei Chen, realizing the magnitude of her miscalculation, attempted to free herself from the clutches of the trap. In the melee that ensued, she was entangled with the enraged alligator, teeth bared and eyes ablaze with primal fury. The young poacher's heart pounded in her chest as the struggle intensified, her desperation mirrored in the eyes of the trapped beast. Witnessing this dangerous scene from a distance, Jin Jinsho hesitated. His gnarled hands trembled with the ghosts of his past, the memories of alligators he had once captured and traded haunting him. Yet in the face of impending tragedy, he couldn't ignore the call of duty that echoed in his hardened heart. The old trapper, driven by a sense of responsibility and perhaps a flicker of redemption, approached the chaotic tableau. With a practiced hand, he skillfully intervened, using his knowledge to calm the agitated alligator and disentangle Mei Chen from the trap. But it was an unfortunate day for Jin Jinsho and Mei Chen. The alligator tightened its grip around Mei Chen's neck. In an unfortunate event, Mei Chen took her last breath, and her soul left the boundary of her body. The alligator, satisfied with its revenge, retreated into the shadows of the wetlands. Mei Chen, her body battered and bloodied, was floating on the water's surface. Realizing the danger she had courted and the harm inflicted upon the alligator population, showed brutal results. The incident became a pivotal moment in the ongoing battle for conservation. The scars left by the desperate trap and the ensuing struggle served as a stark reminder of the fragility of the wetland ecosystem. Jin Jinsho felt guilty for the brutal death of Mei Chen. He blamed himself for not trying to stop and save her. The isolated wetlands near Hangzhou City, once a battleground of greed and desperation, now symbolized resilience and the possibility of redemption for man and nature. The wind howled across St. Lorette Island, a mournful wail that seemed to echo the unforgiving nature of the Arctic. Nestled amidst the stark beauty of snow-dusted mountains and ice-choked bays lay a tiny Inupiat village, a defiant whisper of life against the vast white canvas. Here, weathered wooden houses huddled together for warmth, their smoke plumes rising like silent prayers against the biting sky. In one such dwelling, Anya Karpuk, her face etched with the resilience of countless winters, knelt beside a crackling fire. Her nimble, calloused, and robust fingers repaired a fishing net, its torn threads a testament to her recent battle with a monstrous walrus. Beside her, her two children, Akina and Itak, huddled closer, their wide eyes reflecting the flickering firelight and the ever-present fear stalking their lives' peripheries. Anya's spirit, however, was as untamed as the Arctic itself. Her dark eyes, flecked with the green of summer moss, held a fire that defied the encroaching darkness. Memories of her ancestors, men and women who had wrestled seals from icy depths and navigated treacherous storms by the whispers of the aurora, pulsed through her veins. This legacy was her inheritance, a whispered promise passed down through generations, etched in the lines around her eyes and the stories shared under the pale glow of the Arctic moon. Anya ventured out onto the frozen sea each day, her kayak a swift shadow against the blinding white, her harpoon a silent extension of her will. The unforgiving Arctic tested her at every turn, but Anya met its challenges with a quiet ferocity, her every breath a testament to the unyielding spirit of her people. Evenings were a time for solace and storytelling. In Anya's eyes, Akina and Itak, her children, saw not just their mother but a living embodiment of their heritage, a testament to the enduring spirit that pulsed through the veins of the Inupiat people. In the unforgiving embrace of the Arctic, it was not just the harsh elements they needed to survive, but the icy grip of fear itself. And in the steady hands of Anya Karpuk, they found the flickering flame of resilience that would light their way through the long, dark winter. On a particularly bitter day, with the sun barely gracing the horizon, Anya bundled herself in furs and set out towards a nearby frozen lake. The ice, solid and unyielding, was her gateway to the bounty beneath. Armed with a drill, she cut through the thick ice, creating a small opening to access the frigid waters below. The trap, meticulously set, was her lifeline, promising a meager but vital catch for dinner. As Anya waited in the icy silence, the tranquility was shattered by a sudden disturbance behind her. Akuluk, a rogue polar bear driven by hunger and disoriented by the shifting climate, emerged from the white expanse. The bear's instincts, once attuned to the rhythms of the Arctic, were now warped by the challenges posed by the changing environment. Its massive form loomed behind Anya, a stark contrast against the frozen landscape. Without warning, Akuluk attacked. Caught off guard, Anya fought with desperate bravery born of survival instinct. Claws and teeth clashed against human determination on the icy stage. The unforgiving cold bore witness to the struggle between woman and beast. Anya, though skilled in the art of survival, could not escape unscathed. The bear's aggression left her with severe injuries, but in a display of sheer will, she managed to break free from the relentless assault. Bruised, bloodied, and carrying the weight of survival on her shoulders, Anya staggered away from the battleground, leaving behind her trap and the wounded polar bear. The journey back to the village, each step a testament to her resilience, was a painful odyssey through the tundra. The biting wind seemed to conspire against her, threatening to extinguish the flame of life that still burned within her. The village, a cluster of sturdy homes huddled against the biting cold, welcomed Anya back with relief and concern. The local hospital, a modest yet indispensable institution, became her sanctuary. The medical team, accustomed to treating injuries born of the relentless Arctic struggles, tended to her wounds with practiced care. Anya's journey from the icy lake to the warmth of the hospital bed reflected the harsh reality of life in one of the world's coldest places, where every foray into the wilderness is a battle against nature's uncompromising forces. The news of Anya's encounter with Akuluk rippled through the tight-knit community. The rogue polar bear, its desperate hunger manifesting in aggressive behavior, symbolized the challenges humans and wildlife face in the changing Arctic landscape. The incident sparked conversations about the delicate balance between survival and coexistence in an environment where resources were scarce and the boundaries between predator and prey blurred. Anya became a reluctant emblem of the village's resilience despite her physical wounds. Her ordeal underscored the daily battles faced by those who called the Arctic home. The traditional ways of hunting and fishing, once harmonious with nature, now grappled with the consequences of a changing climate and the encroachment of predators driven to extremes by their struggle for survival. In the aftermath of the encounter, the villagers rallied around Anya, offering support and solidarity. The scars on her body, a testament to her confrontation with Akuluk, also spoke of the indomitable spirit that defined the people of the Inupiat village. The bonds woven by shared struggles grew stronger, creating a tapestry of resilience against the backdrop of the harsh Arctic landscape. As winter tightened its grip on St. Lorette Island, the village faced the ongoing challenges of existence in one of the world's coldest places. The story of Anya Karpuk and Akuluk became a chapter in the ongoing saga of survival, where every meal, every step into the frozen wilderness, carried the weight of a battle against the unforgiving forces of nature. On December 12, 2018, Carla Valpeos's roommate at the Parawana hostel in Cusco, Peru, woke up to find Carla missing. Carla, a 35-year-old legally blind woman from Detroit, was traveling extensively before losing her vision completely to a degenerative eye condition. She had come to Peru for a friend's wedding and to celebrate her 35th birthday, achieving her dream of climbing Machu Picchu's highest peak on December 11th. Carla had joined a tour group to explore Machu Picchu. Despite her visual impairment, she was determined to experience the site fully, and photos captured her smiling at the peak. That night, the group returned to Cusco and celebrated at a local club. Carla shared her hostel room with a woman from the tour group. The next morning, her roommate noticed her absence around 9:30 a.m., and Carla's last communication was a WhatsApp message around 10 a.m., discussing plans to visit a museum. Carla's sudden disappearance caused immediate concern. Her family, especially her brother Carlos Valpeos, was deeply worried since she always kept in touch during her travels. Carlos, living in Brooklyn, New York with their father, Carlos Sr., quickly took action. Carlos Sr. traveled to Peru to join the search efforts. The initial investigation revealed that Carla had taken a taxi on the morning of December 12th. Security footage showed her getting into a cab, and police believe she was heading to a transportation hub in Cusco to catch a bus or shuttle for sightseeing. Her exact destination remained unclear, but she had shown interest in exploring more of the area. Carla was an experienced solo traveler, having visited countries like Yemen, Egypt, and Papua New Guinea. She was an advocate for the visually impaired and had authored a travel book titled Visionless Adventures. Her family knew she wouldn't just disappear without a trace. She had planned to meet a friend, Alicia Steele, at the Lima airport on December 15th to fly back to Michigan. When Carla failed to show up, Alicia reported her missing and canceled her flight to help with the search. Carlos Sr. searched the Sacred Valley, a remote area of the Peruvian Andes, distributing flyers, interviewing locals, and exploring cornfields and caves. Living on savings and donations, he stayed in small hotels and ate minimally, driven by the hope of finding Carla. Several theories emerged during the investigation. One suggested Carla had an accident in the Pisac Archaeological Park, a site she had expressed interest in visiting. Another theory, supported by her family, involved foul play. Carlos Jr. believed an opportunist might have targeted his sister for robbery or assault, leading to her disappearance. He suspected her body could be buried in the Sacred Valley Mountains. The family criticized the Peruvian police's handling of the case, describing their efforts as disorganized. They pushed for more involvement from the U.S. government, hoping the FBI would collaborate with Peruvian authorities. Carlos Sr.'s search efforts included tracking down people who had met Carla before her disappearance, retrieving her backpack from the hostel, and requesting surveillance footage. He worked with local police to search suspected drug houses, hoping for any clue that could lead to Carla. A significant piece of evidence was a video from Pisac, showing Carla walking quickly with her green day pack and white cane about an hour after leaving her hostel. This footage, along with witness reports, indicated she was heading toward the Pisac Archaeological Park. Despite extensive searches involving drones, cadaver dogs, and rescue teams, no trace of Carla was found in the park. Over time, police developed a new theory. Carla might have been lured to one of the many ritual sites in the region, where tourists often try ayahuasca, a powerful hallucinogenic potion. Carla's family denied this, insisting she would not have willingly taken drugs. They believed she was a victim of a crime, possibly involving assault, kidnapping, or human trafficking. Carlos Jr. and his father continued their independent investigation, gathering clues and following leads. They were frustrated by the lack of progress and the slow response from both Peruvian and U.S. authorities. Despite the odds, they remained determined to find Carla and bring her home. On April 10, 2023, 60-year-old Patricia Wu Murad, known as Patty, checked out of the Mandakoro guest house in Nara, Japan. An enthusiastic hiker from Connecticut, she set out on the Kohechi route of the Kumano-Kodo Trail on Honshu, Japan's main island. Patty, who had previously hiked in Spain, France, Jordan, and Egypt, was eagerly anticipating this trip. Unfortunately, it would be the last time anyone saw her. Patty carefully planned her trip, aiming to hike an 11-mile section of the trail, estimated to take 7 to 9 hours. She was expected at her next hostel in Osaka by late afternoon. When she didn't arrive, the hostel staff reported her missing to the local police. The local police began a 72-hour search operation on April 11th, but despite their efforts, no leads were found. The search was called off on April 13th, the same day Patty's husband, Kirk Murad, received a call from the U.S. consulate. Kirk, along with their daughter Murphy and their son, flew to Japan to start their own search. Upon arrival, the family was frustrated by the lack of urgency from the local police. Despite the authorities' help, there was no clear plan of action. Kirk and his family walked the Miura-Toge Pass, where Patty was supposed to hike, but found nothing. They set up a GoFundMe page raising funds to hire a private search and rescue team called Mountain Works. With the help of volunteers and donations, they coordinated the largest and longest search for an individual in Japan, but still found no clues. Kirk expressed his frustration, stating, "There's no article of clothing, no witness, no blood, there's nothing. That's the frustrating part." He criticized the slow response from local police and their limited weekend resources. The search only resumed on April 18th after intervention from the U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal. Despite extensive efforts, the search had no results. By the time the family was notified, Patty's phone had lost battery, preventing access to her location. Japanese privacy laws further complicated efforts to retrieve data from her eSIM card, leaving Kirk and his family struggling to find any solid leads. As weeks passed, Kirk feared the worst. Kirk and Murphy focused on her phone data, hoping it might solve the mystery. They reached out to the FBI for assistance, pushing Japanese officials to retrieve data from Patty's phone. The Murad family's commitment to finding Patty didn't waver. They stayed in contact with the authorities, urging them to keep the case open. However, their financial resources were dwindling. The search had already cost over $125,000, and the family had to live on cup noodles some days to stretch their budget. Despite the mounting costs, they were determined to find her. Murphy, the main point of contact for the search efforts, coordinated with both Japanese police and private search teams. She shared updates on social media, keeping supporters informed and rallying more help. Local Japanese volunteers and global supporters contributed to the search, providing food, transportation, and even joining the search efforts. On May 7th, local authorities officially called off their search due to the lack of evidence. Despite this, Kirk and Murphy continued to push forward. He emphasized that they wouldn't give up until they had answers. The family continued to fundraise and keep the story alive in the media, hoping someone might come forward with new information. By early June, search efforts had to be suspended due to depleted funds, but the Murad family didn't lose hope. Kirk expressed his gratitude for the global support they had received. "There are so many wonderful people on this planet. This kind of restored our faith in humanity. People that we didn't even know volunteered their time. They bring us food. They drive us around. They didn't ask for anything." As the family grappled with the lack of closure, they began to focus on creating a standard procedure for search efforts when individuals go missing abroad. Kirk wanted to help others avoid the struggles they faced. "We want to find the answers. We want to find her," he said. He believed that better protocols and tools like Bluetooth location tracking devices could help prevent such disappearances in the future. Despite the overwhelming challenges, the Murad family remained hopeful. They stayed in contact with the authorities, hoping for any breakthrough that might lead them to Patty. The search was not just about finding her, but also about bringing closure to their family and ensuring that other families wouldn't have to go through the same ordeal. Christina Kaleka, a 20-year-old young woman full of life and dreams, set out on a camping trip with her cousin Faith and two friends, Eddie and Joe, in August 2007. They chose Rainbow Falls Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada, as their destination, eager to enjoy the great outdoors and each other's company. Christina, described as bubbly and hard-working, had dreams of missionary work and teaching. The group arrived at the park on a sunny afternoon, setting up camp near Whiteson Lake. Excitement filled the air as they unpacked their gear and prepared for a weekend of adventure. Little did they know their excursion would take a dark turn, forever altering the course of their lives. As evening fell, Christina and her companions gathered around a crackling bonfire, sharing stories and laughter late into the night. It was a moment of camaraderie and joy, a fleeting glimpse of the memories they would cherish in the days to come. However, as the night wore on, fatigue set in, and the group decided to retire to their tents for a brief rest. Yet in the midst of their slumber, time slipped away unnoticed, and they awoke to the soft light of dawn, realizing they had overslept. Undeterred by their late start, Christina and Eddie seized the opportunity to go for a morning jog, eager to explore the natural beauty surrounding them. They set off together, the crisp morning air invigorating their spirits as they ventured into the wilderness. As they traversed the park, Christina and Eddie made the decision to split up, each choosing a different path to explore. It was a choice made in innocence, born of curiosity and a desire to experience the solitude of the forest. Yet as fate would have it, their separation would mark the beginning of a harrowing ordeal. When Eddie returned to the campsite, Christina was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as they realized their friend had vanished without a trace. Frantic with worry, Christina's friends searched desperately for any sign of her, scouring the park and calling out her name into the vast expanse of wilderness. Hours passed, each moment stretching into eternity as they grappled with the terrifying possibility of never seeing her again. Finally, unable to find Christina on their own, they made the agonizing decision to alert the authorities. It was a moment fraught with uncertainty and fear as they faced the daunting reality of a loved one's disappearance. The Ontario Provincial Police sprang into action, mobilizing a massive search effort to locate Christina. Helicopters roared overhead, canine units scoured the forest floor, and specialized teams combed through every inch of the park in a relentless quest for answers. The search stretched on, each moment filled with pain and uncertainty. Despite their best efforts, Christina remained elusive, her whereabouts covered in mystery. In the midst of their despair, Christina's family clung to hope, refusing to surrender to the darkness that threatened to engulf them. They poured their hearts and souls into the search, determined to leave no stone unturned in their quest for answers. Yet as time wore on and the days turned into years, their hopes began to fade. The once vibrant young woman who had filled their lives with laughter and joy now existed only in memories, her absence casting a shadow over their every thought and action. Despite the passage of time, Christina's disappearance remains a painful and unresolved chapter in the lives of all who knew her. The search for answers continues, fueled by the determination of those who refuse to give up on finding the truth.
Melissa McDevitt was a remarkable woman who had an insatiable love for the great outdoors. Despite battling a rare disorder that often left her fatigued and in pain, she refused to let it hinder her adventurous spirit. From a young age, Melissa found solace in the wilderness, escaping the harsh realities of bullying and discrimination she faced in school. Nature became her sanctuary, a place where she felt truly alive and free. As she grew older, Melissa's passion for exploration only intensified. Armed with her camera, she embarked on daring expeditions to some of the world's most remote and untouched landscapes. From the rugged mountains of the Rockies to the lush rainforests of South America, Melissa captured the raw beauty of the natural world with breathtaking precision. Her photographs told stories of wilderness and awe-inspiring vistas, captivating the imaginations of all who beheld them. In December, Melissa set her sights on Vancouver Island, eager to experience its rugged beauty firsthand. It was a crisp winter morning when she embarked on her solo hike, the air tinged with the promise of snow. Melissa had planned to return home for the holidays after her adventure, but fate had other plans in store. Hours turned into days, and Melissa failed to return from her hike as scheduled. Concerned, her family reached out to the authorities, sparking a massive search and rescue operation. Volunteers from across the island rallied together, combing through dense forests and treacherous terrain in search of their missing friend. Despite their best efforts, days stretched into weeks, and there was still no sign of Melissa. With each passing moment, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier, casting a shadow of despair over the island community. Yet they refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that Melissa would be found alive and well. Months passed, and still Melissa remained elusive. Yet the search persisted, fueled by unwavering determination and a shared commitment to bringing her home. Then, almost a year after her disappearance, a breakthrough occurred. A hiker stumbled upon Melissa's cell phone buried beneath a pile of leaves, a small but significant clue in the search for answers. Hope was rekindled, and search teams redoubled their efforts, scouring every inch of the island with renewed vigor. Their tireless dedication paid off when, at long last, Melissa's remains were discovered hidden deep within the dense forest. It was a bittersweet moment, a mixture of relief and sorrow for those who had tirelessly searched for her. The news of Melissa's fate echoed across the island, leaving a mark on all who had known her. Her family and friends were devastated by the loss, yet comforted by the outpouring of support from the community. Strangers became allies, bound together by a common goal: to bring Melissa home. In the aftermath of her passing, Melissa's memory lived on in the hearts of those she had touched. She was remembered not only for her adventurous spirit and love of nature, but also for her courage in the face of her challenges. Her photographs served as proof of her passion for exploration, inspiring others to seek out the beauty of the world around them.
Janine Vaughan, a vibrant 31-year-old woman from Bathurst, New South Wales, led a life of laughter and adventure. Born and raised in the tight-knit community of Bathurst, Janine was known for her outgoing personality and love of sports. From a young age, she excelled in netball, basketball, and softball, her competitive spirit driving her to new heights of achievement. As she grew older, Janine's passion for sports led her to participate in local leagues and tournaments, where she quickly gained a reputation as a powerful opponent on the court. Despite her athletic expertise, Janine's true joy lay in the simple pleasures of life, spending time with friends, exploring the beauty of the Australian countryside, and immersing herself in the vibrant culture of her hometown. With her infectious laughter and boundless energy, Janine was a beloved figure in Bathurst, cherished by all who knew her. On the evening of December 7, 2001, Janine went out to the Metro Tavern, a popular local bar known for its lively atmosphere and bustling crowds. Accompanied by friends, she embraced the spirit of the night, her laughter mingling with the sounds of music and conversation that filled the air. As the hours passed and the night grew late, Janine found herself drawn to the promise of adventure that awaited her outside the confines of the tavern. It was shortly before 4 a.m. when Janine stepped out into the cool night air, her senses heightened by the thrill of the unknown. As she approached a red car parked outside the Metro Tavern, a sense of anticipation coursed through her veins, mingling with the electric energy of the night. In a fleeting moment captured by the unblinking eye of CCTV, Janine vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and shattered hopes. The days that followed Janine's disappearance were filled with anguish and uncertainty, as her family and friends struggled with the reality of her absence. Despite extensive investigations by law enforcement agencies, Janine's fate remained a mystery, her whereabouts unknown and her fate uncertain. For Janine's sister, Kylie Speldy, the passage of time only deepened the wounds left by her sister's absence. Each day brought new challenges and doubts, yet Kylie remained steadfast in her search for answers, refusing to give up hope that Janine would return home one day. As the years stretched into decades, Janine's disappearance cast a long shadow over the community of Bathurst. As the investigation into Janine's disappearance continued, theories abounded as to what may have happened to her on that tragic December night. Some speculated that Janine may have been the victim of foul play, lured into the red car by a stranger's charm. Others suggested that she may have willingly entered the vehicle, seeking an escape from the pressures of her everyday life. In March 2019, a glimmer of hope emerged as authorities announced a $1 million reward for information leading to Janine's whereabouts. However, as the years stretched on and the trail grew colder, the truth remained a mystery, forever out of reach for those left behind to mourn. On June 24, 1998, Joanne Butterfield vanished from her Mossman home, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering mystery. At 37 years old, Joanne was a woman with a plan, or so it seemed. With her vibrant auburn hair and piercing blue eyes, she embarked on a journey that would ultimately confound investigators for decades. At around 9 a.m. that day, Joanne was last seen by her loved ones, her presence filled with anticipation for adventure as she prepared to hitchhike south. A free spirit by nature, she had shared her intentions with friends, igniting a glimmer of concern among those who knew her best. Little did they know, this would be the last time they'd see her radiant smile or hear her laughter. As the days passed by, the mystery deepened. Joanne's aspects, including her cherished Tweety bird tattoo adorning her chest and a bluebird tattoo on her shoulder, became ominous clues in a puzzle with no clear solution. Her belongings were discovered in disparate locations, scattered like breadcrumbs along an uncertain path. 3 days after her disappearance, Joanne's possessions were found near a lookout. The discovery shocked the community, raising more questions than answers about what truly happened to the vibrant woman with dreams of distant horizons. In a twist that only added to the mystery surrounding her disappearance, an envelope containing Joanne's Medicare card, bank cards, and personal documents arrived at her Mossman home days later, delivered anonymously as if to taunt those desperately seeking answers. Despite exhaustive efforts by law enforcement, Joanne's fate remained shrouded in mystery. The passage of time did little to lessen the burning desire for closure for her family and a community haunted by the unresolved tragedy. 2 decades later, hope flickered anew as fresh leads reignited the investigation into Joanne's disappearance. Acting Inspector Kevin Goen spearheaded the renewed efforts, spurred by recent tip-offs that breathed new life into a case long considered cold. An investigation in 2014 provided little solace, suggesting the chilling possibility that Joanne met her demise at the hands of unknown assailants. With each passing day, the urgency to reveal the truth intensified. Detectives combed through old leads with renewed vigor, spotlighting 2 individuals who may be vital to unlocking the secrets of Joanne's final moments. Their search for justice led them back to the streets of Mossman, where memories of Joanne lingered. The investigation pressed forward, and despite the passage of years, the hope for closure burned unwaveringly bright, fueled by the steadfast determination of a son who refused to let his mother's memory fade into obscurity. For Thorne Niker, Joanne's disappearance was more than just a cold case. It was a personal search for truth in a world shrouded in shadows. With each step he took, he honored his mother's memory. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but Thorne remained undeterred, driven by a sense of purpose transcending time and space. As he went on a trip to know the truth about what happened to his beloved mother, he carried with him the hopes and dreams of a family torn by the cruel hand of fate. What if Joanne's disappearance was not an act of random chance, but a carefully orchestrated plot conceived by people with sinister intentions? Only time would tell as the wheels of justice turned slowly, inexorably, toward a hidden truth waiting to be brought into the light. It was a simple autumn day in September 2005, when Tamara Lynn Chipman, a spirited 22-year-old mother from the Wet'suwet'en Nation, vanished without a trace. Tamara, known for her enthusiastic personality and thick curly hair, had spent her childhood in the coastal town of Prince Rupert, British Columbia. Her love for adventure and her close-knit family ties defined her existence until that day when she went on a trip that would lead to her mysterious disappearance. A series of challenges and triumphs marked Tamara's life. Raised in a close family, she spent much of her youth in the company of her beloved grandfather, Jack, a skilled mechanic. Her parents' separation led her to shuttle between Prince Rupert and Terrace, where she formed a bond with her aunt, Gladys Radek. Despite the difficulties of being a young single mother to her son Jaden, Tamara maintained her feisty spirit, always ready to face life head-on. In the weeks following her disappearance, Tamara found herself in Prince Rupert, her car awaiting repairs in Terrace. On September 21, 2005, she was seen hitchhiking along the outskirts of the town, her destination set for Terrace. It was a standard mode of transportation for Tamara, a way to navigate the long distances between her 2 homes. Little did anyone know that this routine trip would be her last. Months passed before Tamara's absence was noticed. Her father, Tom Chipman, a commercial fisherman, became alarmed when his attempts to reach her went unanswered. It was not until early November that the tragic reality set in. Tamara was missing. With a heavy heart, Tom reported his daughter's disappearance to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, setting off a chain of events that would leave a community in shock and a family in pain. The search for Tamara was exhaustive, spanning the rugged terrain along Highway 16, known ominously as the Highway of Tears. Volunteers searched the countryside while Tom walked the highway, desperate for any sign of his daughter. Despite these efforts, Tamara remained hidden. Over time, tantalizing clues emerged, hinting at the tragic fate that happened to Tamara. Witnesses came forward recounting a chilling encounter with Tamara and 3 individuals who offered her a ride. According to their testimony, a heated argument ensued, leading to a violent argument that claimed Tamara's life. Her body, they claimed, was disposed of in a remote forest, forever concealing the truth of her demise. The RCMP, tasked with unraveling the web of lies and deceit surrounding Tamara's disappearance, launched a dedicated task force named E-PANA. Their mission, to investigate the string of unsolved murders along Highway 16, including Tamara's case. Despite their best efforts, the truth remained a mystery, leaving Tamara's family to grapple with the unanswered questions that haunted them. Tamara's disappearance cast a spotlight on the plight of Indigenous women along the Highway of Tears, a lonely stretch of road where dozens have vanished without a trace. Gladys Radek, Tamara's aunt, became a tireless advocate for justice, organizing annual walks along the highway to honor the memory of her niece and raise awareness of the ongoing crisis. For Tamara's family, the pain of her absence lingers like an unending nightmare. Her son Jaden, now a young man, carries the burden of his mother's disappearance, haunted by the void left in her wake. Tom Chipman, still reeling from the loss of his daughter, finds peace in the memories they shared, a bittersweet reminder of a life cut short. The search for answers continues as the years pass, fueled by the hope that the truth will come to light one day. Tamara's story serves as one of the many examples of the injustices faced by Indigenous women, their voices silenced by a system that has failed them time and again. In the heartache and sorrow that envelops them, Tamara's family finds strength in each other, united in their search for justice. Tamara Chipman may be gone, but her spirit lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. But as the days turn into weeks and months, the mystery of Tamara's disappearance remains unsolved, leaving her family to wonder, what if justice is never served? What if Tamara's story becomes just another tragic case in the ongoing stretch of Indigenous women lost to the highway of tears?
Yellowstone National Park has many secrets hidden within its vast boundaries. The disappearance of Tylee Ryan and her younger brother J.J. Vallow is one of its secrets revealed a year later. Tylee Ryan and her adopted younger brother J.J. Vallow were two siblings. J.J. was an extraordinary boy with autism. They were like other children, filled with laughter and dreams, brightening their parents' world. Tylee, born September 24, 2002, had a radiant smile that could light up the darkest days. JJ, a playful 7-year-old, brought joy and excitement to their household. Little did they know that their lives were about to take a devastating turn. The family went to Yellowstone National Park, where both kids mysteriously disappeared on September 8, 2019. Tylee was Lori Vallow's daughter from her third husband. Her intense cries give the impression that she loved her kids a lot. However, no one knew the true story behind that. As the days passed, whispers of suspicious events surrounded the family. Tylee and JJ's mother, Lori Vallow, had a complex history with multiple husbands, and questions were raised about the circumstances of her previous spouses' deaths. In the whispers, Lori's ex-husband Charles met a tragic end, further casting a mysterious turn on the family. The FBI, Idaho Police Department, and the locals rallied in an attempt to locate the kids, hoping for their safe return. However, the search uncovered not only the disappearance of the children, but also a series of unsettling events. As investigators delved more deeply, they uncovered a string of mysterious deaths connected to Lori Vallow. Her third husband, Joseph Ryan, had met an untimely demise, raising questions about the dark cloud that seemed to follow Lori. The shadow of suspicion loomed over the family, and the once close-knit community was in the middle of an unfolding tragedy. The situation took a grim turn when the coroner testified during Lori Vallow's murder trial, revealing the heartbreaking details of Tylee Ryan's demise. The cause of her death was labeled a homicide, but the manner remained unspecified. The town was left in shock, grappling with the incomprehensible loss of innocent souls. Court documents later revealed the horrifying manner in which siblings JJ and Tylee were found in Chad Daybell's yard in 2020. The details painted a chilling picture of the events leading to their tragic end, sending shivers through the community. The discovery sent ripples of sorrow across the town as the reality of the cold-blooded acts committed against these innocent children became apparent. The investigation continued, unraveling a web of deceit and darkness. Chilling details emerged, exposing the depth of the tragedy. Shallow graves in Chad Daybell's property became the final resting place for Tylee and JJ. The once peaceful town now grappled with the aftermath of a crime that shattered the community's sense of security and belief in motherhood. The total weight of Lori Vallow's actions came to light in the courtroom. The trial unfolded, revealing the harrowing attempts to cover up the horrific crime. Lori faced charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and grand theft in connection with the deaths of her children. The court proceedings painted a sad picture of a mother-turned-culprit leaving the community in mourning and disbelief. As the trial continued, the community grappled with the aftermath of this heartbreaking incident. Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, once the source of joy and laughter, became symbols of a tragedy that forever changed the lives of those who knew them. The echoes of their story served as a sad memory of the delicacy of innocence in the face of darkness. In Glendive, Montana, a 36-year-old woman named Renee Arcand embarked on a journey that would take an unexpected turn. Renee, a Wisconsin native, had set out on a road trip from her home state to Oregon, planning to enjoy the tranquility of Montana's wilderness. Little did she know that her adventure would take a distressing twist. Renee had chosen to camp near the Yellowstone River at the Intake Fishing Access Site, a picturesque spot 15 miles north of Glendive. Yellowstone River flows through northwestern Wyoming, southern and eastern Montana, and northwest North Dakota, and covers an area of 692 miles. The river is so dangerous that it is approximately 42 feet deep. It was a simple plan to camp for 5 days, surrounded by nature's beauty. However, on the night of Monday, June 26, 2023, something went awry. Standing 5 foot 5 inches with hazel eyes and brown hair, Renee mysteriously vanished, leaving her companion in utter distress. On the fateful morning of Friday, June 30th, 2023, a sense of urgency gripped Renee Arcand's companion as they discovered her mysterious disappearance. Desperation led them to search near the camping station. Still, Renee was nowhere to be found, deepening the mystery surrounding her vanishing. Soon, they reported her missing to the authorities. The once joyful camping trip became a frantic search for a missing soul. With her companion's plea for help, the Dawson County Sheriff's Department and the Richland County Sheriff's Department initiated searches to unravel the mystery. Renee's companion, gripped with worry, shared the details of her last known whereabouts. The campsite near the Intake Diversion Dam became the focal point of the search efforts. As the days unfolded, the search extended to include the neighboring areas and the Yellowstone River, covering approximately 70 miles. Desperation grew as searches on land, air, and water failed to yield any trace of Renee. Helicopters circled the skies. Drones scoured the terrain. Despite the high water level, 2 boats navigated the river without seeing the missing woman. The efforts were never-ending, but the high waters and muddy river proved formidable obstacles. As days turned into weeks, the community's gratitude extended to the Richland County Sheriff's Department, who tirelessly joined the search. Badlands Search and Rescue from Watford City, North Dakota, supported the efforts. Daily searches became a routine, each passing day marked by uncertainty. Sheriff Ross Kanan expressed gratitude, but acknowledged their challenges to find Renee. Mother Nature seemed to hold the key to the unfolding mystery. Despite the absence of eyewitnesses, the authorities believed their best guess that Renee might have gone into the water. Suppose the scenario is as speculative as it seems. In that case, the grim reality sets in, and Renee's survival chances diminish. The river might have brutally swallowed Renee, taking her into the darkest depths of its powerful currents. Her chances of defeating nature's forces become gradually slim in such a dire situation. The raging river, a powerful force, may have ended up being the regrettable destination, concealing Renee's fate in the mysterious and dangerous waters, and forcing those looking for her to face the brutal reality of nature's relentless force. However, in that small Montana town, the quiet wilderness echoed with the collective hope of finding Renee Arcand. The once serene campsite bore the weight of an unsolved puzzle, and the Yellowstone River whispered secrets yet to be uncovered. Our story started in West Virginia's hills, where a young girl named LaKayla Shea Putnick lived. She was 14, with brown hair that danced in the wind and brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Shea had been in the care of the West Virginia Child Protective Services, a guardian watching over her well-being. One day, the course of Shay's life took an unforeseen turn. The Child Protective Services decided to place her temporarily with a foster family in the vast landscapes of Wyoming. The foster family, kind-hearted and hopeful, embraced Shay into their fold. Was their kindness genuine, though? As the summer sun painted the skies, Shay found herself on an adventure with her foster family to Yellowstone National Park. The majestic mountains, the bubbling natural geysers, and the wild beauty of nature surrounded them. Little did they know that this pleasing trip would become the setting for an unforeseen chapter. On August 7, 2018, Shay, with her heart full of wanderlust, decided to change the course of her journey. During their visit to Yellowstone, she left her foster family, the safety net that had momentarily cradled her dreams. The reasons behind her departure were known only to her, leaving a cloud of uncertainty. The news of Shay's disappearance echoed through the corridors of Kanawha County Sheriff's Department. They became the investigators, unraveling the mystery of a missing girl. As days turned into nights, Shay's absence cast a shadow over the picturesque wilderness of Yellowstone. No contact was made. No words reached the ears of family or authorities. It was as if Shay had become a fleeting whisper in the vastness of the national park, leaving everyone with unanswered questions. The Sheriff's Department, armed with concern and determination, dug into the puzzle of Shay's whereabouts. They discovered that Shay had ties not only to the wild terrains of Wyoming, but also to the city lights of Billings, Montana. Her connections spread like threads across the states: Wyoming, Colorado, West Virginia, and even reaching the sunny shores of Florida. The description of Shay painted a vivid picture for those searching for her. She stood at 5 foot 4 inches, a silhouette against the backdrop of diverse landscapes. Her brown hair framed a face that had witnessed both the challenges and joys of 14 years, while her brown eyes held the secrets of a soul on a journey of self-discovery. Shay's physical presence weighed approximately 130 pounds, a detail that had become a crucial marker for those hoping to find her. Days turned into weeks, and the search continued. The story of Shay unfolded across state lines, a tale of a missing girl with a past guarded by the West Virginia Child Protective Services, a present intertwined with a Wyoming foster family, and a future that remained uncertain. The people involved in Shay's story, her foster family, the law enforcement officers, and the community, held on to hope. The vastness of Yellowstone National Park, once a symbol of adventure, now became a daunting landscape echoing the silence of a missing presence. Still, after a lengthy investigation and search, Shay needed help. Her sudden disappearance left so many questions. Some questions were asked about the kindness and sincerity of the foster family. Were they properly taking care of her? Were there any disputes between Shay and her foster family? But these questions remain unanswered, as Shay never returned. No one knew what happened to her. And so the pages of Shay's story turned with each passing day, a narrative waiting for resolution, a conclusion to the mystery that unfolded in the heart of the wilderness. Worry started to spread in the quiet town of Fort Collins. Christine Cummings, a 32-year-old woman, had vanished without a trace, leaving her friends and family in distress. The story began on a winter day, December 29, 2020, when Christine was last seen at home. Days slipped away with an eerie quietness, resembling a faint whisper lost in the wind. A relative, troubled by the unsettling silence over Christine Cummings' absence, finally took action. As the calendar turned to New Year's Day, the distressing news rippled through the community, reaching the attentive ears of Fort Collins Police Services. Responding to the call, officers rushed to Christine's home with a sense of urgency, yearning to unravel the mystery that enveloped her disappearance. Upon arrival, a heavy stillness lingered, amplifying the concern. What was supposed to be a vibrant house on a new year now echoed with silence, and the search intensified without any sign of life. Notably absent was Christine's trusty companion, a black Jeep SUV, which seemed to have vanished along with its owner, adding a layer of perplexity to the unfolding enigma. In the heart of Fort Collins, the quest for answers commenced, each passing moment amplifying the mystery surrounding Christine Cummings' inexplicable disappearance. Fueled by concern and urgency, the investigators delved into the mystery. Christine's family believed she might have embarked on a hiking adventure, a possibility that raised both hope and worry. The detectives found no signs of foul play, adding a layer of mystery to the unfolding tale. Amid worry, Christine's friend Melissa George emerged as a beacon of hope. In an era of digital connections, Melissa took to the online realm, creating a spreadsheet with trails for people to search. A collective effort began, with friends, family, and concerned citizens joining virtually to find their missing friend. Melissa, who had known Christine since 2005, painted a picture of her friend as level-headed and deeply passionate about her life in Fort Collins. The disappearance seemed surreal, as it was entirely out of character for Christine. Concerns echoed through the community, with friends and family bewildered by her sudden absence, unaware of any plans for a grand hiking trip. As the investigation unfolded, Fort Collins police widened their search. They contacted Yellowstone National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park, knowing that Christine was known to explore the trails of these two majestic landscapes. The search expanded beyond city limits, encompassing the vast wilderness where Christine might have ventured. Amidst the worry and uncertainty, details about Christine emerged, creating a vivid image for those searching for her. She drove a 2015 black Jeep SUV with the license plate EOL-263. Christine, a white woman with brown hair and blue eyes, stood 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighing 140 pounds. Each detail became a beacon for those hoping to spot her in the vastness of nature. Days turned into nights, and the community remained on edge, awaiting news of Christine's safe return. The story of a missing woman unfolded, bringing together a community in shared concern and collective efforts. The quiet town of Fort Collins became a backdrop to a tale of friendship, worry, and the unwavering hope for a happy ending. But despite all efforts, there was no sign of Christine. No one knew where she went and why. Her disappearance is still a mystery, waiting to be solved.
On the night of September 4th, 1978, Margaret Fandel and her two children, Scott and Amy Fandel, were out celebrating the arrival of the children's aunt. The Fandels lived just south of Sterling, Alaska. Margaret's husband, Amy's biological father, had left the family 9 months prior. Things were pretty tough for Margaret ever since the man left, so she'd asked her sister Kathy to come live with her and the two kids for a while. Kathy obliged, and now here she was. On that Monday night, Margaret and Kathy took the kids and went to Good Time Charlie's, a bar and restaurant in Sterling. But it was getting late, too late for the kids. Scott Fandel was 13 years old, while his little sister Amy was only 8 years old. Margaret and Kathy decided to take the children back home and return to the bar without them. The Fandels lived in a cabin, in an area surrounded by woods off Scout Lake Road, about half a mile from Sterling Highway. The area was so heavily wooded that the cabin couldn't be seen from the road. The cabin had 2 bedrooms, one for the kids and one for Margaret and now Kathy. It also had only one singular bright streetlight shining out front, warding off the night. They arrived at the cabin at about 10 p.m. Margaret told her children not to stay up too late. The two women then took off, returning to the bar. But Scott and Amy decided it was best to pay a visit to their friends, the Lupton family, who were their next-door neighbors. That night, they played with the Lupton children for a while, but soon it was time for everyone to get ready for bed, and the children were making too much noise. Consequently, the Luptons sent Amy and Scott back home. The lights were on in their cabin at about 11:45 p.m. as a neighbor passed by. Scott and Amy were both afraid of the dark. Margaret and Kathy didn't make it back home until later that night, sometime between 2 and 3 a.m. on September 5th, 1978. Margaret noticed something strange right away. The lights were out inside the cabin. This was highly unusual. Again, her children were both afraid of the dark. The two women entered the cabin only to find another somewhat puzzling sight. A pot of water was boiling on the stove. A package of macaroni and a can of tomatoes sat open on the kitchen counter. Margaret was well aware that her 13-year-old son, Scott, liked having a late-night macaroni snack every now and then. But why was the water boiling on the stove if the children weren't in the kitchen? Still, the women weren't really worried. They assumed Amy and Scott were either sleeping in their bedroom or spending the night over at the Luptons. The two women went to sleep. At approximately 8:30 a.m. that morning, Margaret left for work, leaving Kathy still asleep. When the children's aunt woke up, she wasn't surprised to see Amy and Scott were not at home. After all, it was a Tuesday, a school day. She went about her day. But things turned worrisome at some point that morning when Margaret tried to reach Amy at school. She called the institution, wanting to speak with her daughter. Instead, she was told Amy never got to school that day. That was strange enough to make Margaret want to go look for her children, but her boss wouldn't let her leave work. Later that day, the Lupton children came over to the cabin. They asked Kathy about Scott and Amy's whereabouts. That was when Kathy learned her niece and nephew hadn't attended classes that day, nor had they spent the night at the Luptons. She called Margaret, who in turn called the police. Police started searching for the children. They found bullet casings outside the cabin but couldn't figure out whether they were connected to the children's disappearances. A witness came forward, claiming to have seen a black sedan on the road near the cabin that fateful night. Police eventually found the owners of the sedan, two carnival workers. As it turned out, Margaret had allowed them to sleep over at her cabin sometime before the children's disappearances. The two carnival workers were let go. They claimed they were in the area to pick up their checks after working at the Alaska State Fair. Dog teams scoured the woods. Local ferries were thoroughly searched too, but no trace of the children was found. Margaret and her family believed that Amy's father, Roger Fandel, who'd left the family 9 months before the children went missing, was responsible. But Roger was in Arizona at the time of their disappearance. Roger himself believed his uncle was responsible. The case still remains a mystery, with some people still blaming Margaret, while others believe Scott and Amy were abducted and killed by an opportunistic predator who'd followed the children home and waited for the right time to strike. But what do you believe happened? It was just before 10 p.m. on the night of October 11, 2014, when jail Tiara Hamblin and her roommate Kendra Estrada returned home. The two young women had gone out for dinner to TGI Fridays, but now it was time to get back to their shared house and their respective children. Kendra's children and Jail's infant son were being watched by Kendra's mother at the time. But once they got home, Jail told Kendra she was thinking of going out again. Kendra, however, decided to go back to bed. But Jail, who was only 20 years old, was upset that night. A man she was interested in had rejected her. Jail's life wasn't exactly uncomplicated. She was born in 1994 in Washington State. She spent the first 2 months of her life in foster care before finally being adopted by a family. She was raised mainly in Wasilla, Alaska. After her parents divorced, though, she also spent time with her father in Washington. At some point during Jail's childhood, it became obvious she was facing some challenges other children were not. Jail struggled with cognitive, social, and developmental delays. Eventually, she was diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which explained the issues she was facing. Once she hit adolescence, Jail began rebelling, which eventually led her to drop out of high school. She ran away for the first time at the age of 17. Now at 20 years old, though, Jail was another person. She had a baby son whom she cared for deeply. Her son gave her purpose in life. His existence led to her turning her life around. That night, though, Jail texted a male friend at 1:40 a.m., telling him she was crying. She also told him she wanted to get together with him. A while later, shortly after 3 a.m., the young woman exchanged text messages with another man. It is possible her sadness also made her feel restless, hence the lack of sleep. But then morning came around. Kendra, Jail's roommate, texted her at 10:32 a.m. Jail didn't respond. Kendra made no other attempt to contact her, not until noon when she knocked on Jail's door. There was no answer. Kendra entered the room only to find it empty. The bed was unmade. Jail had taken her purse as well as her phone, but she left her car, a 1990 Ford Expedition, parked in the driveway. She had a learner's permit. Jail Hamblin's mother reported her missing on October 14th, but no trace of her was ever found, not until months later in March 2015, when hikers discovered her purse buried in the snow along a trail in Chugiak, Alaska. They handed the purse over to the police. Inside the purse, the police found Jail's iPhone 5. They discovered that none of Kendra's texts on October 12th had gone through, indicating that the phone was either turned off or the battery had died. Authorities also concluded Jail couldn't have left the purse along the trail herself, since the weather on the night she disappeared was freezing, and Jail didn't enjoy hiking. Jail's family believes she wouldn't have abandoned her son, but she remains missing. Christine Susinski had spent decades of her life as an accomplished opera singer, performing in places like Sydney, Venice, and Tokyo. Not only was she a great singer who was sought by many opera houses, Christine was also a multi-instrumentalist, wielding the cello and French horn with impressive skill. However, as she approached her old age, she decided to give it all up and move to Victor. a small town on the southeastern edge of Idaho. There, she learned to fly glider planes and eventually became an instructor, a pursuit that deepened her lifelong love of nature. On June 9, 2018, she embarked on one of her usual trips to the sky, just as she had many times before. Accompanying her in the passenger seat of her non-motorized glider was a friend named David Ross. Just before takeoff, Christine discussed the planned route with her tow-pilot, whose name remains unknown. At the time, nothing seemed out of place, and the wind conditions were identified as calm. They even completed the pre-flight duties for the glider together, ensuring that the trip would proceed without any issues. Eventually, the tow-pilot and his plane, along with Christine and her glider, took off from a location in Idaho. They soon reached the foothills of Darby Canyon at 11,500 feet above mean sea level, experiencing little lift at that time. Throughout the entire flight, the tow-pilot maintained radio communication with Christine as they worked together to find lift and gain sufficient altitude for the glider's release. When they finally reached an altitude of 13,800, Christine then released the glider, leaving the tow-pilot to return to the takeoff airport without incident. Kristen was expected to arrive at the scheduled terminal point within an hour of releasing the glider. However, she neither arrived nor attempted to communicate with the front desk to provide an update on her situation. After an hour past the expected arrival time, the front desk manager tried to contact her via radio but received no response despite multiple attempts. He waited for a while, hoping that contact would eventually be made. When none came, the glider was reported overdue, and an alert notice was issued to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. But just before a full-scale search and rescue effort was launched, the owner of Teton Aviation Center initiated a private search of his own using a helicopter. Guided by Christine's last known cell phone coordinates, the glider was located wedged between Middle and South Teton, above Iceflow Lake, at an altitude of approximately 10,800 feet. Sadly, it was in a wrecked state and appeared to have collided with a ridge along the side of the mountain. The Teton Aviation Center then notified the park authorities of the wreckage location. A search and rescue team subsequently reached the scene, confirming the fatalities of Christine and her passenger. Utilizing a long-line helicopter operation, the remains were recovered and transported to the coroner's office. When the aviation accident report was eventually released, it provided no clear answers, which only deepened the mysteries surrounding the crash. Investigators found no signs of pre-flight mechanical problems or missing structural components. They also claimed that the glider was airworthy, after ascertaining that it was properly assembled and that its records showed it was properly maintained. It was later speculated that Christine might have passed out during the flight, although it was never confirmed by the investigators. On July 14, 2014, Mary Margaret Bilyeu joined a guided climbing party for a hike to the summit of the Grand Teton, which stands at an impressive 13,700 feet. The team was made up of Mary, her climbing partner, and a skilled guide from Jackson Hole Mountain Guides. They embarked on their journey in the early morning hours to ensure they had ample time to cover the required distance and reach their destination safely. Given that Mary and her partner were accompanied by a professional guide, it seemed unlikely that they would encounter any significant obstacles along the way. However, just a few hours into the hike, Mary experienced an unexpected accident. As she was negotiating a short section of the climb below the upper saddle, at an elevation of 13,116 feet, she lost her footing and fell off the trail, plummeting to the bottom of the saddle. The climbing party immediately contacted the dispatch center for help, and climbing rangers who were on a routine patrol near the lower saddle moved to respond to their SOS. Despite their proximity and quick response, it was unfortunately too late to save Mary. When the rangers arrived at the location, they found Mary unresponsive, and every attempt to revive her failed. Despite wearing a helmet during the climb, it did nothing to protect her from the impact of falling from such a steep height. With no other options, the rangers pronounced her dead after consulting with the park's medical director. She was then evacuated by helicopter to the coroner's office for official confirmation of her demise. Meanwhile, other staff members from Jackson Hole Mountain Guides who responded to the scene escorted Mary's climbing partner down from the upper saddle to the lower saddle and eventually to a trailhead on the valley floor. Mary's death was shocking for one major reason. Earlier that year, she had successfully climbed to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. This climb required her to cover a distance of almost 20,000 feet, a feat that many who attempt it do not manage to complete. It was evident that Mary was an experienced climber who knew her craft well and should have had no trouble navigating the Grand Teton. When news of Mary's demise reached her family and friends, they were shocked and devastated, given their awareness of her climbing skills. Her brother John Conley expressed their disbelief, stating that it was unimaginable that this could happen. He also described his sister as a very advanced climber and an all-around fitness buff. Away from climbing, Mary was a devoted and loving daughter, wife, mother, and sister. She was also actively involved in the family's Santa Fe tag agency in Edmond, and she participated in various charitable activities. To her friends, Mary was dependable, always showing up to help whenever they were in a bind, regardless of any discomfort it might cause her. She was eventually laid to rest on the 22nd of July at an interment ceremony attended by her friends and family. At around 11:30 a.m. on August 3, 2021, 57-year-old Nicole Sauvain-Weiskopf was last seen on CCTV footage walking alone past Aoyan Beach in Phuket, Thailand. The footage showed her heading towards the Aoyan waterfall, a popular but secluded spot on the island. Nicole, a Swiss national, was the deputy protocol chief of the Federal Assembly of Switzerland and had arrived in Phuket on July 13th as part of the Phuket Sandbox program, which allowed vaccinated tourists to visit without quarantine. At 1:30 p.m. on August 5th, 2 days after she was last seen, local authorities received a report of a body discovered near the Aoyan waterfall. The body, found face down in a rock crevice and covered with a black sheet, was soon identified as Nicole Sauvain-Weiskopf. The discovery was made by a local resident who was passing through the area. The scene was horrifying. Nicole's body was partially clothed, wearing only a t-shirt and a jacket. Nearby, police found her blue sports shoes, a black backpack, underwear, and her phone. The initial examination by police and medical examiners suggested that she had been dead for at least 48 hours, and there were signs of sexual assault. This shocking discovery prompted a swift response from local authorities. Security on the island was heightened as officials sought to reassure tourists and residents alike. Thai Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha expressed his condolences to Nicole's family and urged the police to expedite the investigation. Phuket's regional police commander, Kittirath Phanpech, emphasized the suspicious nature of the death. Deputy Inspector General Wudachai Chanfai added that the location of the waterfall was remote and typically only known to locals or experts. The investigation quickly focused on CCTV footage and other forensic evidence. Within days, police arrested 27-year-old Tirawat Thothip, a local man living in Phuket. Thothip, who was unemployed due to the pandemic, confessed to the crime during a police press conference. Tirawat explained that on August 3rd, he had gone into the forest near the waterfall to search for wild orchids to sell. As he was leaving the area, he saw Nicole sitting by the waterfall, dipping her feet in the water. Tirawat admitted that the sight of Nicole aroused him, and he decided to approach her with the intent to take advantage of her. He described how he grabbed Nicole from behind, placing her in a chokehold. Nicole struggled and tried to call for help, but Tirawat pushed her head under the water to silence her. He held her there until she stopped moving. Afterward, he dragged her body to the shore, removed her shorts and underwear, but then lost his sexual desire upon seeing her lifeless body. In a panic, he covered her with a black plastic sheet he found nearby and took 300 baht, approximately 6 pounds, from her backpack before leaving the scene. Tirawat's confession matched the evidence found at the scene and the timeline established by the CCTV footage. The footage had shown Tirawat arriving at the waterfall on his red motorbike at around 10:01 a.m. and leaving at 1:06 p.m., roughly the time Nicole was last seen alive. In the days following the discovery of Nicole's body, Thai authorities held a memorial service at Dusit Thani Laguna in Phuket. Phuket Governor Narong Woon-Shu spoke at the vigil, expressing the community's grief and their commitment to ensuring the safety of tourists. Swiss embassy officials and local residents joined in laying flowers in Nicole's memory. On August 7, 2021, Tirawat was officially charged with murder and robbery causing death. The case moved swiftly through the Thai judicial system. On March 14, 2022, the Phuket Provincial Court sentenced Tirawat to death for the murder of Nicole Sauvain-Weiskopf. However, considering his full confession and cooperation with the police, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. The court's judgment was watched online by Nicole's husband and son from Switzerland. They expressed their gratitude to the Thai police and judicial system for bringing the killer to justice. Despite the tragedy, the Phuket Sandbox program continued, as it was crucial for Thailand's recovering tourism industry, which had been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The program, which began in July 2021, had brought in significant revenue and saw a steady flow of tourists from various countries. The sun, a molten orb hung low in the cerulean sky, cast long skeletal shadows across the parched earth of Gramati Game Reserve in Tanzania. In the dry season, a relentless sculptor had stripped the savanna bare, transforming the once lush grasslands into a canvas of ochre and sienna. Dust devils danced across the plains, swirling like phantoms in the hot breath of the midday wind. Amidst this stark beauty, Benwogi Camp stood resolute, a haven of ochre-tinted canvas tents and laughter echoing amidst the clinking of metal cooking pots. It was a temporary sanctuary for a motley crew of researchers, their faces etched with sun and passion, their eyes reflecting the endless fascination with the wild. But for Aisha Turner, Benwogi Camp was more than just a base camp. It was a portal to a world she had dreamt of since childhood, where the secrets of lion behavior whispered on the wind. Young and vibrant Aisha possessed an insatiable curiosity that shimmered in her bright eyes. Her red hair, usually tamed in a braid, often whipped loose in the wind, mirroring the untamed spirit that crackled within her. Armed with a notebook, worn thin from countless scribbles, and a camera that hummed with anticipation, she was a constant presence at the waterhole, a silent observer in the grand theater of the wild. The waterhole, a life-giving artery pulsing through the arid landscape, was a magnet for all creatures, great and small. Giraffes, their long necks swaying like pendulums, dipped their heads into the murky water, their patterned coats a stark contrast against the bleached canvas of the savanna. Zebras, their striped bodies shimmering in the heat haze, grazed nervously, their ears swiveling for the telltale rumble of approaching danger. And then there were the lions, monarchs of this sun-drenched domain. Their golden manes, crowned with the fading light of the sun, held the weight of ancient lineage, their amber eyes burning with an awareness of their power. Aisha watched, mesmerized, as the lions moved with a primal grace, their muscles rippling beneath their tawny coats. She studied their interactions, the subtle flick of a tail, the low rumble of a growl, the unspoken language of pride. Each encounter, each hunt, each tender moment shared between mother and cubs was a piece of a grand puzzle, a glimpse into the intricate tapestry of lion behavior that consumed her every waking thought. In the heart of Gramati, under the watchful gaze of the African sun, Aisha Turner was not just a researcher. She was a student, an apprentice, humbled by the raw power and breathtaking beauty of the wild, and determined to unravel the secrets that danced in the amber eyes of the lions. Hassan Ole Nkare, a seasoned Maasai guide with an innate understanding and deep respect for the natural order, warned Aisha about the perils of venturing alone during twilight. The predators, particularly the territorial and cunning Mtemi, a dominant male lion, were known to prowl the vicinity in search of prey. However, Aisha, driven by her zeal for understanding the intricacies of lion interactions, dismissed Hassan's cautionary words and headed toward the waterhole. As Aisha set out, the golden hues of the sunset cast a warm glow over the savanna, painting the landscape in shades of amber and rust. The air, thick with the scent of dry earth and acacia, crackled with the distant calls of unseen creatures. The waterhole, a shimmering oasis surrounded by wilting grass, promised crucial data on lion behavior. Mtemi, driven by the relentless demands of thirst and hunger, prowled the periphery of the waterhole. His golden mane, a regal crown that marked his dominance, glistened in the fading light. The sinuous grace of his movements betrayed a keen awareness of his territory. The scent of potential prey carried by the evening breeze caught his attention. Aisha, oblivious to the proximity of the apex predator, crouched near the waterhole, meticulously recording the nuances of lion interactions. Unbeknownst to her, the ominous figure of Mtemi lurked in the shadows, his amber eyes fixated on the unsuspecting researcher. As the dry grass rustled beneath his silent approach, a sudden dust devil swept through the landscape, obscuring Aisha's vision and momentarily separating her from the safety of the camp. Amid the swirling dust, Aisha struggled to maintain her bearings. The world around her became a disorienting whirlwind of particles, reducing visibility to mere meters. panic flickered in her eyes as she realized the sudden vulnerability of her situation. Unseen by Aisha, Mtemi seized the opportunity, his powerful muscles propelling him forward swiftly and lethally. The silence that had draped the savannah like a silken shawl was slashed to ribbons by a guttural roar. It erupted from the shadows, a guttural sound resonating through Aisha's very bones, sending a tremor of primal fear. Before she could even react, a blur of tawny fur, muscle, and teeth slammed into her. Mtemi, the pride's magnificent lead male, was a force of nature unleashed. His immense weight pinned her to the sun-baked earth, his razor-sharp claws digging into her flesh like hot irons. Aisha's raw and desperate scream tore through the twilight air, a stark counterpoint to the guttural symphony of the lion's attack. Her mind, though, refused to surrender. A lifetime of fascination with these creatures, of studying their every move, now fueled her desperate struggle. Adrenaline surged through her veins, turning her limbs into weapons. She clawed at the lion's thick mane, her fingers finding purchase in the coarse fur. With a strength born of pure survival instinct, she pushed against his immense weight, trying to create space to buy herself a precious breath. But Mtemi was a seasoned predator, his every movement honed by centuries of evolution. His powerful jaws clamped onto her arm, crushing bone and flesh in a vice-like grip. The pain was a searing, white-hot agony, but Aisha refused to yield. She kicked, her legs finding purchase on the hard earth, trying to dislodge him to break free. The air filled with the metallic tang of blood, her own and the lion's. Hot breath, smelling of dust and predator musk, washed over her face. Her vision blurred, the vibrant colors of the savannah fading into a kaleidoscope of pain. Yet a flicker of defiance, a spark of the researcher's spirit that refused to be extinguished, kept her fighting. A final desperate lunge, an adrenaline surge pushing her beyond her limits. But Mtemi, the king of his domain, was unyielding. His jaws met again, this time on her throat, severing the breath from her lungs. The roar that tore from his chest was the final punctuation mark on her struggle, a chilling victory cry that echoed across the silent plains. Aisha's body went limp, the fight draining from her like the water from a drying riverbed. The sky, now awash with the first blush of dusk, seemed to hold its breath in the face of this brutal ballet of life and death. And in the stillness that followed, the only sound that remained was the rustle of the wind whispering through the tall grasses, a mournful elegy for a life extinguished under the relentless gaze of the African sun. Hassan, stationed at a distance, had been alerted by the chilling roar that echoed through the savannah. His experienced eyes scanned the horizon, and the gruesome tableau revealed itself as the dust settled. Aisha lay motionless, her dreams of unraveling the mysteries of lion behavior extinguished in the brutal reality of the wild. A profound grief settled over Benwogi camp as news of Aisha's tragic fate spread. The incident ignited a vigorous debate among researchers, guides, and conservationists about the ethical implications of studying wildlife in dangerous environments and the responsibility of promoting responsible tourism. The tragedy underscored the delicate balance between scientific inquiry and the imperative to protect researchers and the wildlife they sought to understand. Hassan, burdened by a sense of responsibility and the weight of Aisha's untimely demise, became an unwitting participant in this discourse. His years of guiding had taught him to navigate the thin line between observation and interference, and the tragedy served as a poignant reminder of the unpredictable nature of the wild. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the Gramati Game Reserve, the legacy of Aisha Turner echoed in the rustling grass and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. The debate on responsible wildlife tourism persisted, a somber acknowledgement of the challenges inherent in studying the untamed beauty of the African savanna. The dry season continued its relentless grip, and Mtemi, having reclaimed his territory, moved through the darkness with a regal, untamed grace.